Who else could it be but me, your man, Louie T, here on behalf of Bleacher Report with our day after reaction to the Commanders' 40-7 thrashing of the Carolina Panthers. It was a very interesting day, to say the least, in terms of the emotions that were felt throughout the course of the game. I think we talked a little bit about that yesterday. But as you had a day to kind of process everything that transpired last night with the Commanders, I think everything kind of hinges upon the 3:30 press conference today with Dan Quinn, head coach of the Washington Commanders. Last night in the press conference, in the post-game session, he said, look, don't have any updates for you. You know, we'll get more imaging and things done in the morning, and we'll have more for you tomorrow when I speak to you then. So when he was addressing the media, everyone's kind of on pins and needles waiting for the prognosis. I don't think any of us anticipate it being significant in terms of amount of time that he could be out. I think this will be a wait and see type of week where he'll be on the injury report, obviously. And, you know, every day we're waiting for updates, starting with Wednesday, as to did he practice? You know, how much was he able to do? He'll probably meet with the media Wednesday, more likely than not, because he did not meet with the media after the game. And normally he would be available after the game. So I think, you know, there'll be a lot of different things that we'll see this week. But yesterday's game was significant for a number of reasons, none of which was the opponent that Washington was playing in the Carolina Panthers. They were 1-5 coming into the game. We knew they weren't a good team, but they had certain aspects of their performance here of late, especially since Andy Dalton had taken over, that they had performed better. And you could not sleep on this team. They were averaging 17 points a game, but since Andy Dalton had come into the picture, they're probably averaging more like 23 points a game. So it was hard to really assess like what you were going to get, but you knew if you want to get to where you're going, you have to beat teams like Carolina. You can't lose to those types of teams. And the thing that we've seen with Washington this year that we haven't seen in the past is that we're not just beating those teams. We're not just beating Arizona. We're not just beating Cleveland. We're not just beating Carolina. We're destroying them. That's what the better teams in the league do. You know, there's this whole notion that, oh, you haven't played anybody, this, that, and the third. But if you look at the good teams in the league, they're going to have wins over bad teams. That's how the bad teams get bad, right? The reason that bad teams are among the worst in the league is because they lose to teams that are better than them, right? So Carolina's not 1-6 if they were a part of the middle class. If they were a part of the middle class, they'd be, 3-3 right now, or 3-4, or 4-3, right? Or maybe even 2-5, you're bad, pretty much. If you're 2-5, you're bad at this point. And it's hard to change that. Like the Jets are bad right now, but who knows? They've got enough talent, but who knows? But the Panthers are 1-6 for a reason. Just like teams like Tennessee are a one-win team. And, you look around the NFL at the Patriots, those are bad teams, and they're bad because they don't win games. And the reason they don't win games is because teams like Washington, right? Detroit, Minnesota, et cetera, the teams that have 5 and 6 wins at this point, they beat those teams. And just beating them is cool. Just find a way to win. And at the end of the day, this isn't college football. There are no style points here. Just find a way to win. But there's something to be said about blowing out an insignificant and inferior team. And Washington's ability to do that this year is different. It's different. And to do it, and I think yesterday put an extra layer into it, because so much of what we've done this season was predicated off of Jaden Daniels' performances. Like, we go as he goes. And that hasn't changed, by the way, right? He's still the engine that powers this vehicle. Wherever we're going to go this year, it's going to be because of number 5. However, we played a team yesterday that we didn't necessarily need him to win, right? Which is, it speaks to a bigger and a larger point, that this team is well coached. It's a better team than I think people are giving it credit for. And the coaching has been fantastic. Cliff Kingsbury was outstanding yesterday. Joe Witt Jr. continues to shape and mold this defense, right? They continue to get better. Now, again, I've said this, and I think I said this yesterday to you guys, and going back and watching the game again, I feel even more sure of this, more resolute in the way that I feel that when we play teams with better talent, the defense is going to struggle. This is not a coaching issue. This is a talent issue. There is a discrepancy from a talent standpoint when we play teams with a stout offensive line and a quarterback that gets the ball out on time and talented receivers that can separate and win against man-to-man coverage and tight ends that can, find a way to get open or be a target for a quarterback. We're going to struggle because this defense doesn't have the horses. But when the talent discrepancy isn't great or is non-existent as it was in this game, you could argue that our defense was way talented than their offense. You're going to see this result like you saw against Cleveland, like you saw against Arizona. And that is because of coaching. This is a really well-coached football team. And having listened to guys after the game talk about, Marcus Mariota, and I think that's another part of this is seeing what they were able to do despite not having your leader in Jaden Daniels out there and still being able to put up 40 points, not flinching in the face of adversity. Your quarterback goes out of the game. This guy that has been electrifying this year, that has set the NFL on fire, and he leaves the game, and you don't blink, you don't flinch. You just proceed to continue to stomp a mud hole in the Carolina Panthers. It says a lot about how you are wired mentally. Because I've seen teams in the past that didn't overcome these types of situations, that mentally couldn't overcome the hurdle of their star quarterback not being in the lineup and collapsing. Now, again, it'd take a better opponent to make that happen. And we just so happen to be playing one of the worst teams in football, so it allowed us to get away with it. But we didn't just get away with it. We ran away with it. And I think if you're a Commanders fan, that has to make you feel really good about this team and their prospects moving forward. Like, hey, this is a good football team. And I think I said that yesterday. My most important takeaway from the game is this is a good team. This Washington Commanders team is a good team. You can make all you want out of the fact that the record of the teams that they've beaten this season is 9-25. Cool. Like, you got to understand context. When we played the Giants, they weren't 2-5. Okay? They were 0-1, searching for a win, and they came in there confidently thinking they were going to beat us. When we played the Arizona Cardinals, they weren't, I think they're 2-4 right now. They weren't 2-4 then. They were 1-2 coming off of a tough, hard-fought loss to Detroit. They were confident. Cleveland, they were already bad when we got to them, right? But Cincinnati, when we played them, yeah, they were 0-2. But everybody, including Troy Aikman, if you would have watched the pregame, you would have thought we were just showing up as a scrimmage. We were a sparring partner, and Cincinnati was just showing up to go ahead and get their strength back, to round back into form. Oh, they're getting T. Higgins back tonight. Joe Burrow should have a coming out party against this Commanders defense that struggled to start this season off, which wasn't incorrect. But you would have thought we were a sparring partner. We were just sharpening their tools for them to turn their season around. Nobody picked us. We were 7-point underdogs in that game. So you can miss me with the whole conversation of 9-25. Those teams are 9-25, partly in due because we beat them. All right? This is a good football team. And yesterday's performance, it hammered that point home. To do it in the fashion that they did, especially defensively, I think that's the part that I think a lot of people really are not sure what to think about this defense because, and I figured it out. I think I've given you now the reasoning behind the success of a game like yesterday or Cleveland or Arizona. When we play teams whose talent level on the offensive side in respect to our defense is equal or slightly above or slightly less, but somewhere in that neighborhood, they're close enough. Our coaching staff will make up the difference. If they're slightly talented, more talented than we are offense than we are defense, the coaching staff will make up the difference. If we're equals talent-wise, their offense to our defense, our coaching staff will exceed them and we'll pass them and we'll win and we'll outperform their offense because our coaching staff is that good. It's when the discrepancy in talent is too great, we can't overcome it defensively. But they're going to compete on the defensive side of the football. And the turnovers are starting to come. For the first time this season, we've forced a turnover now in 3 consecutive games. That's not something that we had done, right? We were just like, hey, just force 1 turnover. Force 1 against Baltimore, forced 1 against Cleveland, forced 2 in this game. So now the turnovers are starting to happen. Didn't turn it over, which was huge, especially with Marcus Mariota coming into the game. For the 4th time this season, the Commanders have rushed for over 200 yards. It's the first time in NFL history a team has started the season off in the first 7 weeks and rushed for over 200 yards 4 times. This isn't a fluke. And one of the things I talked about last week when I said I was a little disappointed because I didn't think we stayed true to who we are. And again, Baltimore, #1 rush defense. You can't lose sight of that. But we run the football. That's who we are. And not having Brian Robinson Jr., I think, not only changed how we performed on the field from a physicality standpoint, I think it changed the mentality of our offensive play caller, Cliff Kingsbury, going into that game. Like, we don't have B-Rob. I don't know if our backs are physical enough to deal with this Ravens defense. So I'm not even going to try. That's what it kind of felt like. We kind of passed on the run game because we didn't feel like we could out-physical them because we didn't have our guy that leads the charge in physicality. There's a massive difference when 8 is on the field in terms of the run game. And you saw it yesterday, without question. And I think the last big piece of yesterday's performance is the performance of Marcus Mariota. 18 of 23, 205 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Added another 40, 50 yards on the ground and really took command of the offense. And after the game, Zach Ertz said, that offense that you saw on the field and the offense that we run is a lot closer to the offense Marcus Mariota ran while at Oregon when he was a Heisman Trophy winner. And he's a lot more comfortable and you could see that. Like he started out a little rough. He was a little rocky. Missing open receivers, timing was off. You could tell he was a little rusty, hadn't played in an NFL game in quite some time. And so he had to knock some of that rust off. But once he did, he completed 14 consecutive passes. And the wheels still work. They're not as fast as they used to be. They don't turn as fast as they used to. But the wheels still work. They still work. And you could see he was very comfortable. And they were emptying the set. He was back there and, shout out to the offensive line again. At this point, I don't think it's a fluke anymore. This is a cohesive unit, this offensive line is. Look, Carolina was one of the worst teams at getting to the quarterback coming into the game. So, and they had injuries. No Jadeveon Clowney, no A'Shawn Robinson. They did what they were supposed to do up front to a unit that was banged up, that was ravaged by injuries. But that's what you're supposed to do. Just like Carolina's not good, you're supposed to beat them up. That's what they did. That's what you're supposed to do. Right? And Mariota had all day to throw the football. It was a sight to behold. That's for sure. But his performance kind of puts you at ease. There was a real debate amongst the fan base at the end of the preseason as to whether Jeff Driscoll should be QB2 here. No, seriously. Mariota had only played a possession against the Jets. He got injured. He ended up starting off the season on IR. And there are a lot of people, myself included, saying, hey, Jeff Driscoll looked better. Let's give him the two job here. And this credit to this staff. They knew, they understand the assignment. They understood the assignment the entire time. And I was a big fan of the Mariota signing because of what he could mean for a guy like Jaden Daniels in terms of his experiences in the NFL. It's hard when you've gone through the things that Jaden Daniels has gone through. That ascension in college, the number 2 overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, having the weight of a franchise placed on your shoulders, that's a lot. And not many guys know that feeling. I don't want to talk to Jacoby Brissett. He doesn't know what it's like. Okay? He knows what it's like to play quarterback in this league. He doesn't know what it's like to be the number 2 overall pick, to be viewed as the savior of a franchise. He doesn't know what it's like to win a Heisman Trophy. Game recognized game, and only a select few can have that conversation with you. And Marcus Mariota could. He was the number 2 overall pick. He went to a Titans organization that was looking to replace Steve McNair and hadn't had a franchise quarterback since. And he was a Heisman Trophy winner. And there was a lot going on. And he could speak to Jaden and tell him, hey, just be you. And he said, I told him that several times, just be you. Don't feel like you have to save this team. Just play your game. And then on the field, I said his game is very similar to that of Jaden Daniels. You don't have to change the things schematically that you do. You can go out and run your same game plan, the same plays you put in this week. When you started preparing for Carolina, for Jaden Daniels, you put those same plays and call those same exact plays for Marcus Mariota. And they did that. And Mariota went out and executed them beautifully. And I think that instilled a lot of confidence in the fans, in those players in the locker room who, after the game, said, no, we knew Marcus could do this. We saw him in the summer. And I think it feels like this group has pressed all of the right buttons this season, right? Starting in the offseason, into training camp, preseason, into the regular season. They've pressed all the right buttons. And one of the buttons that they pressed that was very underrated, that I've talked about numerous times, is the fact that they made Jaden earn it, right? They didn't just, like when the Bears drafted Caleb Williams, like the day after they drafted him, they announced that he was QB1. Like there's no competition here. There's nothing to talk about. We drafted this kid to come in here and be the savior of this franchise. We didn't put that pressure on Jaden. We drafted him, and we knew the end game was he's going to be our starting quarterback. That was no secret. They weren't trying to hide it, and DQ even told us. It's no secret that the end game is him starting week 1, but there's a process to get there. And we need him to put in the work. We need him to show his teammates that he's willing to put in the work and be one of the guys. And then what didn't get talked about a lot, because we were so focused on 5, is that Marcus Mariota, throughout that process, was getting reps with the ones. And if he doesn't play this season, it becomes less and less significant that he got reps with the ones in the summertime, during training camp, for much of training camp. It becomes less and less significant if he doesn't play. But because this happened and he got in the game, you got to see what him having that continuity and connection with these guys, having taken reps with them in the summertime, what that was able to do for him. Terry McLaurin had 6 targets in this game and had 6 catches for almost 100 yards. Like, that didn't happen on accident. That happened because he and Terry McLaurin got reps this summer. They were able to talk through some things during the summertime when they missed a rep together. Hey, here's what I'm thinking when I come out of this break. Here's where I want the ball. Or, hey, this is what I'm thinking when I see this coverage and I see you coming out of your break. This is where I'm going to put the football. And they were able to have that connection. Zach Ertz catching that touchdown. He hadn't had a touchdown all season. Well, he caught a touchdown in this game because they had a connection that they worked on in the summertime. And so when you look at how things were done, it's just another button that was pressed correctly by this staff that I feel like has pressed every button correctly. The kicker button. You see how that situation is played out? The Jets are struggling. They had Austin Seibert in camp and they cut him loose. Not saying that that was the wrong decision, but Mariota's play kind of puts you at ease, like, hey, not telling you that Mario's going to play that well every week because he's not playing the Panthers defense every week, right? It'll be a much bigger test if Jaden can't go against the Bears. It'll be a much bigger test next week against Chicago. But what I am telling you is he can come in and confidently run this offense, and we can continue to play the type of football. It won't be as dynamic as Jaden being in there and the threat of Jaden's legs and his accuracy and the quick release and his arm strength, all that stuff. You know, we're going to miss it if he doesn't play. But the reality of the situation is this team doesn't fall off a cliff if there's no Jaden, because one, they're a team. Two, they're well coached. And three, Marcus Mariota isn't a chump. He's a competent NFL backup quarterback. And I've said this already. If you have any aspirations of doing damage in this league, I'm talking winning a playoff game, going to the championship game in your respective conference, or winning a Super Bowl, if you got any aspirations, you best have a quality NFL backup quarterback at your disposal. You better. You won't make it through an NFL season if you don't. Most teams at some point will need their backup to step in there, even if only for one game, a half, whatever. You better have a guy. And the Commanders have a guy in Marcus Mariota. And I think that's another big takeaway from yesterday's game. But as I just mentioned, the pressing of the right buttons, that's another thing that I think you can take away the day after this Panthers game. Is another button that was pressed correctly was allowing Marcus Mariota to get reps with the ones throughout the summer. It helped. And if you start looking at all the right things that have happened to this team, you can't help but look at the situation being 5-2 right now, and looking at what the staff has done and looking what the front office has done and saying they've put us in a really good spot to be where we are right now. And that's a testament to this new group coming in, hitting the ground running, and kind of having a plan. Having a plan. And it's been beautiful to watch it unfold. Darrell Green had his ceremony yesterday at halftime to retire his number. His number will forever be etched in the lore of this organization. No other commander will ever wear the number 28 again, which no one was wearing it anyway. There were numbers that were untouchables essentially, but 7 used to be one of those numbers, and then Dwayne Haskins came along, right? So to stop that from even being a discussion, we're going to retire that number along with 49, 33, 28, and 9 were the numbers, and 21 now, or 28 now. 21, 33, 9, I think were the only other numbers. 9, 49, 33, and 21 were the 4 jerseys that were retired that no one could wear. Sean Taylor's being the most recent until Darrell Green's 28 was made unavailable for the rest of time. And that's the right thing. One of the greatest players in this franchise's history, honored the way that he should be honored. It was a beautiful ceremony. They posted the halftime ceremony on the team website, on the YouTube channel as well. And it was tremendous to watch. And I loved every second of it. And so big shout out to Darrell Green. And that's another takeaway. The day after, that this organization gets it. They truly get it. And marrying the past with the future and the present, or marrying the past with the present as we continue to forge forward into the future, it is something that has to be done. You know, I'm watching the Steelers game last night, and they were honoring the players from Super Bowl IX. And the Steelers, they do that routinely, making sure that you know that the reason that we're here today and the reason that we have this prestigious standing within the NFL and we have the most rabid fan base in the NFL and can take over anyone's stadium is because they paved the way for that. Those players made it possible for us to have the setting and the scene that we have now, and the expectation and the standard that we have now. And I love that this new group, this new ownership group has come in and they understand that this organization had a rich history and tradition rooted in winning before Daniel Snyder came in and ran this thing into the ground. And we want to get back to that tradition of winning. We want to restore that organizational pride. And part of doing that is honoring the guys that had this organization with such a rich legacy in history. And guys like, John Riggins and Darryl Green and Art Monk and guys like that were instrumental in the success here in Washington need to be acknowledged. And I think Darryl's going to be the first of a number of guys that are going to see themselves, put into that stratosphere at some point. I don't think anyone should be wearing 81 here. I don't think anyone should be wearing 44 here. There's numbers that should just be off limits that currently are off limits. I mean, when's the last time you saw someone wear 81 in Washington? 44, right? But the option shouldn't even exist, right? That shouldn't even be a number that, hey, I don't think this group is dumb enough to do what Daniel Snyder did, which is, hey, just ask the legends whose number is off limits, can you wear it? Nah, not doing that. Let's put this number up on the top shelf so nobody can get it. That's what they did with Darryl Green, and long time coming, and it was beautiful to watch. And I was glad to see the players show out in the way that they did in front of the alumni who were there in support of Darryl Green, there because it was a homecoming night, but more importantly, there because we were honoring one of the greatest players in franchise history. And they put on a show for him and all of the legends that were in attendance. And that was awesome. The crowd was rocking despite the injury to Jaden. They put on a show, and that was awesome to see as well. So I'm just telling you right now, the day after, it feels great. It feels really good to be in the position that we're in. Now it's just a matter of finding out the details of this injury to Jaden Daniels. And then you start, mentally preparing yourself for what's to come next. We're going to play some much better teams coming up here in a bit, starting with this Bears team. Then you get the Giants, got to take care of that. Then you turn around and then it's Pittsburgh, another 5-2 team, right? So the Bears are 4-2, Steelers are 5-2. The Eagles, we'll see where they are when we get to them. But that's a quick turnaround on a Thursday night. Now you get into that division play. Got Dallas the week after that. So things are going to start to get a lot tougher. Start playing those division games. If you're serious about winning this division, this is where you got to start really taking control of things. We've done a great job of setting the table, right? But if you truly want to eat, here's the opportunity. Table set now. You start at 5-2. How well do you want to eat this season? Because 11, 12, 13 wins is in front of you. If you want to eat that good, the table's set. You got all your utensils right here. Napkins tucked nice and neat into your shirt. Got one on your lap. How much and how good you eat, you'll be able to determine that. But we got a seat at the table. We're leading our division. Now, how much do you want to feast? We'll find out. A lot of opportunities coming up here in the next 5 or 6 weeks or so. I like where we stand. I like the style of and brand of football that we're playing. And I feel good about this team moving forward. And you know what this week is going to be all about. You know what it is. And the hope is Jaden Daniels is healthy. But one thing I know this organization isn't going to do, and I sleep well at night. I take solace in knowing that, yeah, he might be hurt, and that sucks. And we were looking forward to this matchup because we really want to shut Bears fans up because they've been extremely obnoxious, and that's putting it mildly. There's some things I would really like to say, but I'm not going to say. But they've been extremely obnoxious. And we owe them. I made a list before this season started. I made a list. And that list contained all of the teams that we were looking to get revenge from. They probably were at the top of the list. What they did to us last year, There were some unspeakable actions done in that game last year, 40-20. We want revenge and we want it bad. And whether JD5 is out there or not, I'm looking to collect on that revenge. We've scratched a lot of names off the list already this season. Cleveland ended our season in 2022. The last realistic chance we had to make the playoffs, the Browns came to FedEx Field and ended that in short order when we scratched them off the list. I can go on and on. We couldn't beat Daniel Jones for some reason. I can't explain it. Well, we got him too. Scratched him off the list. Panthers came here in 2020 when we were fighting to try to win the division, a bad division at that. And they came here and they beat us in 2020. Scratched them off the list. The Bears are at the top of the list. And with all the trash that their fans are talking, for no reason, we got no ill will towards the Bears. we could care less about the Bears. They brought this energy to our doorstep. Now we're going to reciprocate the energy and more. So we want this one bad. But if Jaden can't go, they're not going to force it. And I love this organization because of that. Because the last group, oh, you best bet they would have done everything in their power to have him ready for Sunday. You know how hard it was? And I talked about this last week. You know how hard it was for them to keep Brian Robinson Jr. out of that Ravens game? They knew they needed him for that game. But they knew that wasn't in his best interest to play. That wasn't going to help us long term. Don't be so short-sighted that you miss the long-term goal. They're not going to do that. If Jaden can go and and he won't put himself in greater risk and harm going, then they'll put him out there. If they feel like he needs a week, we'll see you in week 9. So, a lot of good takeaways from yesterday's performance, the press conferences after the fact, what people were saying, how I felt, watching the game back again. So incredible defensive performance. Less than 200 yards given up, forced 2 turnovers, held the Panthers to 300 or to 3 of 10 on third downs, which, is one of our biggest issues this season. Had a pick 6. Hadn't tasted pay dirt defensively this season. I mean, we hadn't really forced any turnovers this season. Now we're +3 in the plus-minus category after forcing 2 more turnovers yesterday. We tackled extremely well. There wasn't much that we didn't do well defensively yesterday. We got after the quarterback. We did all the things that we set out to do. And we did it in dominant fashion. And now you start to look and say, all right, how far can this thing go? We're going to find out over the next 5 weeks or so. Table set. How much you eating and how good you eating. We'll find out. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on the day after reaction to the Commanders' 40-7 thrashing of the Carolina Panthers. I look forward to chopping it up with you guys next week. We got a big one against the Chicago Bears. The Bears. Look forward to talking to you then. But until then, I'm your man Louie T, signing off. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Take care. Raise hell.